it, boss?
Hello! Today I want to show you the true purpose of Citadel paint pots. Now, obviously, these things weren't designed with holding your paint in mind. This weird tag thing on the back gets in the way, the lid hinge is really fiddly, this drip thing is useless, it crusts up super easily unless you're hyper vigilant about cleaning it out, and if you knock it over you can kiss your washers goodbye. Unlike most humans, who are about 70% water, we Orcs players are about 70% Agrax Earthshade. The idea of losing that much liquid gold in one fell swoop is nightmarish. So what are they actually made for? Well, what if I told you that they're actually an Orcs kit? That's right, today we're making killer cans! This here is a killer can that I made out of a Citadel paint pot. It's about the same shape and size, it carries all the same equipment, and it fits very snugly on the 60mm base that the official models come with. But how do we take literal garbage like these old empty paint pots and turn them into 50 points per model of some of the best shooting that Orcs have in their codex right now? I'll show you.
First, go to your graveyard of empty Citadel paints that you've emptied into much better containers.
You did hold on to these, right?
Clean this pot out as best you can, especially around the outside. You can remove the lid if this makes it easier for you. Make sure it's completely dry so you don't get any mold inside your can. To remove this hateful little tag, just pinch it with one hand and rotate the pot with the other. It should come loose after a few rotations. Good riddance. Reattach the lid and seal it shut. There's some raised lettering on the bottom of these pots. Take your scraping tool of choice, a nail file or a hobby knife will do, and try and remove them. It doesn't have to be a smooth surface, these are Orcs after all. We just don't want it to say Games Workshop on the top of your finished model. Use a marker to roughly sketch out where the front, back, and side faces of your pot are, and we're ready for assembly. Now for this build I'm mostly going to be using parts from actual kits, mainly the Death Dread. Let's start with the visor and the weapons. Because of the smooth, curved surface of the paint pot, these parts don't attach so easily, especially if they've got tabs on them that help them slot into the original kit that they're from. The main adhesive for this build is going to be hot glue. Super glue doesn't take so good, and plastic glue can be really fiddly on a surface like this. If you want to put stuff on other stuff that doesn't really like to have stuff put on it, and do some gap filling at the same time, all for dirt cheap, then hot glue is your friend. Or at least your acquaintance that you tolerate at Christmas. The guns from the Death Dread kit have this nice flat attachment point, so we can just slap that straight on there. But the claw has a ball joint meant for a socket. It seems that Games Workshop has neglected to put a socket on this killer can model. Must be a miscast or something. Let's file down the ball joint so we have a flatter attachment point. Then we'll slap a glob of hot glue onto the can, squidge the arm in there, and once you're confident with the angle that it's at, you can add a little more hot glue over the exposed joint to reinforce the connection. You can add limbs to your killer can if you have them around, but I kinda like the squat, frumpy, almost childlike look that these scrungly little arms have. Visor done, weapons done, now it's time to do the jankiest part of this whole build. Let's give it some legs. We're going to have to make some of our own this time, and to do it, we're going to be using sprues. Just go to where you keep all your leftover sprues from old models and pluck out a few with nice straight edges.
You did hold on to those, right?
I love making things out of sprue. They're so easy to work with, and you get them essentially for free every time you buy a kit, or clip out some secondhand bits. There are so many things you can do with sprues in your hobbying. Channels like Mistcast and Midwinter Minis have great tutorials on how to use sprues in your terrain. But you can't mention sprue content on YouTube without talking about the God Emperor of Sprues himself, Miniature Hobbyist.
Hi guys!
The amount of utility this guy gets out of what is essentially packaging material is nothing short of mind-boggling. Luckily our killer can build here is a lot simpler than building a wizard tower or a giant hamburger. We're just going to need a few clean, long lengths of sprue. Take some of the longer straight edges, like the outside of the frame, clip them out, and then remove any raised lettering, as well as all the nibbly-knobbly bits. Do not throw away your sprue offcuts. There are lots of things you can do even with just these scraps.
You will hold on to these, Right.
Now let's get to building, and this can be very fiddly. Luckily we're using such cheap on-hand materials that it's quite forgiving. Take 2 leg length size lengths and smush them together to make a leg length size length leg. Add a third leg length size length to the leg length size length leg, and once you're happy with the leg length size length leg's length, it's time for the feet. 2 pieces of sprue will make these funny chicken claw looking toes, kind of like the ones the official model has. Add a shorter piece of sprue at the back to connect them, but don't let the plastic glue set here. This is where we get really fiddly. Add the leg in here, and close the toes and the connection point at the back around it until they fit snug. Add another connection point in front of the leg across the toes, drown the whole affair in plastic glue, and wait for it to become one solid piece. If your leg and foot stick to whatever surface you're working on, like mine did, just take a hobby knife and run it underneath the foot to unstick it. Once you're happy with your leg, add another globule of hot glue to the paint pot, just about where the arms are. Squidge it in, and try and get it at such an angle that this horrible little thing will actually be able to stand on its own. Amazing! Our little lad is almost finished now. Let's get to the gubbins! Take out your spare parts bag, and let's choose some things to throw on there to make it look a little orkier. There's not actually a huge amount of real estate on these cans once you've added all the limbs, so I've gone pretty light on the gubbins here. Just a few spikes on the noggin, some ablative paneling, and a fuel tank on the back. But this is where you can go nuts with your spare parts. You can add engines, glyphs, wires, grots hanging off the side, cup holders, back banners, whatever your orky heart desires. I think this scrungly little fellow is done. I've also built another one off camera, in addition to the test model, so we have a unit of 3 killer cans. It was the same process to build both of them.
I'm not gonna make you watch me do the exact same thing 2 times in a row. What do you think I am, a handle opera?
Let's see if a lick of black primer makes these look less like various kinds of garbage and more like an actual game piece. And after hitting them with a layer of Citadel's Chaos Black spray, yeah, these kind of look like real models. Let's hit these lads with a basic Goths paint job, stick them on some bases, and call them done.
It's late afternoon now. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to paint everything, but I'm certainly gonna try. So start your engines, lads. Here we go. Okay, it is now 2 hours since I started painting. I had to come inside because it got dark. But I got them all finished. All 3 of these killer cans are battle ready, and I think they look pretty good, considering that they were made of essentially garbage. Big reveal? Big reveal. Ta-da! Here are the finished killer cans. All based up. Check that out. Now, it's not the most glamorous paint job, but the sun was setting and these guys are made of trash, so I thought something simple and slapdash would be appropriate, and they still look pretty good. They kind of remind me of the old 2nd edition Orc Dreadnought, the little cardboard cutout that came in the Orcs vs. Blood Angels box set. So they're the right size, they got the right equipment, and technically, they're 100% Games Workshop plastic. Hell yeah. And that's how you go from this to this. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I've got some more dumb stuff in a similar vein coming up, but the project's a little bit bigger. I'll see you then. Happy October!
Sod off!